Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the Canyon. Welcome back to a overly thorough sequence of this versus that. This is a direct head-to-head 10 Pro based. Where's our buddy? Okay, 10 Pro. Now, my inclination would be to take the 10 Pro, grab a VRD, fit them with. Is that? Well, still got a little overspray mask on it. My inclination would be to take a VRD, put them head to head. I don't have a VRD yet. It's not built yet. So we're gonna start all the way at the bottom, okay? And this is the electric Kool-Aid acid test. This is the stance. Is today's competitor. You will notice they are outfitted with, and I mean this, the exact same wheel tire insert combo. Injora greens, S4 Injora comp pins on Injora Clone 105s. The only difference being his are silver, his are black. We have that usual different. We're getting in the weeds. Before we get to the rocks, we're getting in the weeds. Call it 850 grams per set, which is a bunch of low added weight. So any weights that you see here, you know, like, let me see. We've got the stance the stance is in on a loaner. And I said, we got to make them even. And this guy's on VXT2s. VXT2s have been dismal here. So I wasn't going to get another set. Yeah, about 90 grams a corner is what's added between the alloy and the Injora silicone. These are 125 grams a piece. So the full set would be under 500 grams. So any of these weights here, offset by 350 to 400 grams. But then again, don't, because putting the insert in adds weight, about 70 grams per corner just in the insert, which I know a lot of people are not huge fans of unsprung weight that is rotating. But guess what? It's also the insert, and the inserts work real well with these tires. So for all parties involved, it's kind of a win-win. So these guys went across both sets of scales. I've got the old Sky RC wired setup. We'll be putting those up in the corners. And after that, they went onto the big kitchen scales because doing a full CGH analysis, the corner balance is far too difficult on those tiny little Sky RC scale pads. So I use kitchen scales. So starting from this side, 2,623 grams off the Sky RC scales. It'll pop up somewhere. The weight on the kitchen scales was 2,625 grams. So a 2 gram differential. The gentleman over here, 2,713 grams. So he is, what does that put us at? 90 grams? Yes. This gentleman is 90 grams heavier than this gentleman. I genuinely thought that the weight differential was going to be greater. I really did. And I had, I guess, mentally forgotten that how heavy the 10 Pro gearbox is. They are both fitted with identical Z 2203 S packs. This guy on the kitchen scales, 2609. So 2 gram differential over there, 4 gram differential over there. We've got 5842 and 5545 by virtue of factory knuckle weights, even if you buy the RTR. And I think I got about halfway into my basically complaint that this is not the matchup that I would particularly want, because I don't recommend anyone ever, under any circumstance, buy one of these. If you like the look of that, do what you do here. Buy this. Build this. Put whatever body you want on it. If you want to put a stance body on it, put a stance body on it. Whatever you want to put on it, build this, because this is $429, that's $429. You'd have to buy a body for it that costs about the same. You'd have to buy the wheels and tires, it costs about the same. So, if anything, the party's starting down a peg today is this one. Because he's got the VM1, the VR1, the VE1, the VS1. He's got the RTR electronics, which are substandard at best. So we've got that 3% more front weight. We've got 100 grams, and that 100 grams is 90 grams. And that 90 grams is probably, honestly, knuckle weights. So that means we're going to have about the same amount of axle weight, which is great. Keep the weight low, keep the weight unsprung. The 10 Pro has advantages in that it is set up economically, but nevertheless, Hobbywing Fusion SE running off of a radio link. Radio, we've got a nice little Injora 7kg doing the overdrive shifting duties, and he's got an RS400 NSDRC low-profile servo in the front. That's a $100 servo. All of these electronics together are worth about $9. I mean, let's be honest about it. The radio is not half bad. I am not an enemy of the VT1. This is a perfectly acceptable radio. But I mean, if given the opportunity, I'm definitely going to take one of these over one of those. Just for the adjustability and the amount of stuff I can do with it. So, our weights are really, really close. We have a battle here of portals versus, when you look down like that, the similarities are striking. We have the battle of portals versus straight axles. Some guys do some things better. Some guys do other things better. You've got to give, and this is not subjective. Look at that servo on axle configuration, and look at this servo on axle configuration. You gotta give it to Axial. That is brilliant. They both have no triangulation in the front uppers, so we get the schwabble. They both schwabble. They both have an upgraded shock, and well, these are regular incisions. If you have the kit, you have an upgraded shock. This is an RTR, but it's not. It honestly takes probably about 2/3 the amount of time that it would take to just build a VRD or a 10 Pro from a kit in a box to get this ready to go. Because it is haphazardly assembled by people that don't know nor care what they are doing and are either paid by the piece or not enough by the hour, because this portal box had so much grease in it. It was exploding out onto the universal. It had completely encased the wheel hex because the grease was getting hydraulicked out. Meanwhile, this one had very little. There was very little in either of those. I had to pull the third members, check the rings and pinions, pull all the covers, check the gears, pull the gear cover off, check the gear mesh, which was surprisingly good. I did not bother to open up the gearbox. We're just going to assume that they got it mostly right. Most of the time was spent completely disassembling the shocks, cleaning Dawn and hot water. I have little bottles, and I shake up the parts, and they were disgusting. There was oil everywhere. They have been rebuilt now, and they were built to basically the exact same spec as when I built these. We see the settle, and we're running them upside down because they are incision, and they will just leak all of their guts out. The same reason that the 10 Pro shocks are being run upside down. They will leak all of their guts out. There are two different approaches here, and because of the differences in approaches, as I gave the victory in servo on axle configuration to Axial by a lot, the victory here in gearbox goes to Vanquish by a lot. This is ridiculous, absurd, engineered, convoluted, ridiculous. It has excess parts. It puts an FMM for no reason. The plate that is holding the spur gear. Can I orient these so they're like straight down the barrel of the camera? Okay, look at that spur gear right there, spur gear. And if we put it even wheel to wheel, I think his spur gear is almost perfectly parallel straight across. And we haven't done any goofery or foofara. So what does that mean? That means that this weight is further forward, and then, okay, this is a perfect angle for it. Look at this, and look at this. I measured it. It's 10 millimeters. This motor sits 10 millimeters lower than that one, and farther forward because of the kick of the skid. So the full motor is further forward, and let's talk about it. In terms of these vehicles, 10 millimeters is enormous. So here's the back, effectively, here's the back of the gearbox on this, and the back of the gearbox is back here. It's got to be 25 millimeters further back, which is another part that would help explain that 3% differential in front to rear weight split. On the scales, they were alarmingly close in terms of what is on each wheel. Front right, rear left cross on this gentleman, 1292, 1331 on front left, rear right, and then on the other guy, 1335 front right, rear left, and 1378 front left, rear right. So we have a differential of about 40 grams one side to the other, most likely due to battery placement. This guy's battery is over here, which this was the placement from Vanquish, because all of the electronics right here, so the servo won't fit quite as well. So the motor and the battery are kind of biased off to this side. This guy, the battery is on the opposite side, and the motor is definitely over there. But the gearbox is much bigger, and the gearbox is biased much more towards that side. The center line of the gearbox is over here. The center line of this guy's gearbox, the spur gear, is slightly off-center right, but it is much closer to center than this. They split the difference here. So you get those 40-gram differentials, which is not enormous, as long as the cross weights come out pretty good, and with a tiny little bit of tweaking, or a smaller battery, or a reconfiguration of electronics. Like if this guy is converted over and you put a Fusion in it, I think those weight numbers move around in a better direction. So I think that probably the unanswered question that everyone is asking is CGH, center of gravity. We do it on the kitchen scales. We weigh them in two configurations. Well, we weigh them in three configurations. We weigh them level, we weigh them with the front axle raised, we weigh them with the rear axle raised. We get the CG numbers because virtually every vehicle will have a different CGH, whether climbing or descending. That's just the way it works, because the bias tends to be off to one direction or the other. So if you have a lot of front bias and you're descending, it's going to lower your CG. So this guy doesn't. So again, portals, straight axles, you would automatically assume there's 12 to 13 millimeters of additional height because just of the portals. But this motor sits 10 millimeters lower. The bulk of the gearbox sits significantly lower. The bulk of the gearbox, which is the heaviest single component of sprung weight, sits further forward. So this is a 10 Pro fitted with its body, exactly like it looks right now. The only thing making either of these short of RTR when they went on the scales is they were not sporting body clips, which is about between 2 and 3 grams, depending on which body clip you're using. So I'm not overly concerned about it. The CGH for this vehicle, which is made by taking an average between the ascending CG and the descending CG, is 3.38 inches. For the rest of the world, that is 98.5 millimeters. That is what I would regard as a fairly typical CG. That is right about there. Maybe if this was right there, can we see the T? Probably right about the top of the T. Which then, if you crouch yourself down and look, yeah, it's good. The CG is going to run somewhere through the motor, pretty much universally. Whatever your setup is, when you get your CG, it's pretty much going to run through the motor. Because aside from the gearbox, the next single most heavy component is going to be the motor. 3.38 inches, 98.5 millimeters. And then we have the VRD, which despite being portal, look at the height of the motor. Remember, 10 millimeters lower. 3.03 inches CGH. That is 14.5 millimeters lower. So the stability here is because this has, I should mention, this was ghost ridden before, driven with an unpainted body, and it feels exceptionally stable. More stable than this. More stable than a VRD. I have not driven the stance since it was, I have not driven this stance ever. I have driven a stance in the past. This one, we shortened the wires down. We cleaned up the routing. We rebuilt the shocks. We re-greased everything. I flipped the servo over to push this way so that we didn't have to wrap the wire around that. I don't know why they didn't just do this from the factory. The servo usually has the horn over here, which means that the wire output is over here, and they have to wrap it all the way around the gearbox to come down. Or you can flip it over, run it like that, and then it really simplifies your wire routing. So I don't know. They're both. This is as configured from the box. We added wheels, tires, and inserts and electronics. This guy is configured as from the box. We added wheels, tires, inserts, and that's it. So, if this was a price differential, then it's not a fight, because this is as close to the RTR configuration as you can get. But as I said, we need that parity of tire. Testing them on different tires would negate everything. We are not going to get nearly the low speed control, response, torque, anything out of a VM1 VE1 combo as we will out of a Fusion SE. Much less a Fusion Pro Outrunner, anything along those lines. This guy is slated to be like completely rebuilt. He's basically going to be turned into a modified VRD through his life cycle. But for now, it is perfect that he sits in near stock configuration, because this guy could be called box stock. We've put the pieces on it after the kit build, and we haven't done anything to it. There's been no link tuning. There's been no suspension tuning. It is much more difficult to get his body on because of the little side pieces. I don't like either of these bodies. The stance is my least favorite tucked body. And I have said before, and I will reiterate again right now, that I think that the 10 Pro body looks like the bottom half of a hot dog bun. It is truly a body that it looks like somebody phoned it in. And, as we saw, like, look how low that looks, right? My fade did not work out the way I was hoping. It does look a little lizardy, so I'm okay with that. I don't think it looks bad. I think it's a proper 6-footer. But then we have the stance, which is a boat. It looks like a Chris Craft. And it's like a generic, I have one, I have a white one. It's like a generic tucked body. And I say that when, you know, a lot of the J-Concepts offerings, Proline offerings are kind of generic tucked options as well. I just think they do it better. This yellow-green is also, I don't know. So when we see them sitting down like that, you look at that and you go, oh man, CG. Bodies are usually going to weigh between 4 and 5 ounces in the 100, say, call it 100 to 130 gram area. And if we look at the belt lines, the respective belt lines, it's clearly not pushing weight higher on the stance versus the 10 Pro. Because the stance, despite having... I honestly, I thought it was going to be absolutely reversed. I saw this guy in stock configuration having his CG in that 90 millimeter area. And I saw this guy, honestly, I saw this guy being in the like high 70s, low 80s. And it was flipped. It was the other way around. So in terms of performance, we're going to do the things. We are going to establish not a tire test protocol. We are going to establish a vehicular testing protocol of an as of yet undetermined number of spots that they have to hit, like particular lines that they need to hit. And I will have my own thoughts as to who I think did better at it, but I'm going to leave that up to you. They're going to run, and you'll see, right? Never ever buy this. Don't buy this. Don't buy a stance. If you want this, buy a VRD and build it. Because the VRD is currently, in my estimation, the best bargain on the market. And I know, when I say that right now, that blows a hole through the 10 Pro already. Because a VRD... I've got both boxes right here. What am I doing? This costs $429. This costs $429. You get more in this box than you get in this box. And I don't just mean that these rails are aluminum and these are carbon. You get the knuckle weights, you get a much better gearbox, you get... Anyway. We will get to that. There will be a side-by-side, a head-to-head, a side-by-each of 10 Pro versus VRD in a reasonably close configuration. And for today, it is 10 Pro versus Stance. And this guy has to win. He needs to win if victory is indeed quantifiable, because this is the one I actively tell people not to buy. Fixed 6.5% overdrive, switchable between 0 and 40. So, I mean, to be fair, we would only leave this in 0, but no. If he needs 40, we're going to switch it into 40. He has it, we're going to use it. It will cost and it's not a cost-saving thing, $429 for a kit, $499 for an RTR, but not really. Like, we're going to see that a Fusion is going to beat all that stuff. I think that's a foregone conclusion. So, in the end, they're going to cost about the same amount of money. Only you're going to throw a lot more stuff away, and you won't throw anything away when you build this. So, there you go. The rocks, as always, are the grand arbiters of success and failure. They are the determiners. So we're going to go to them. We're going to let them do their things. And it's still crazy to me how high that sits. How high that looks like it's sitting compared to that. But that has a lower CG. I double did the math. I used the calculator for the whole thing because I didn't trust any of it. So we leave it to the rocks. Head-to-head VRD 10 Pro. Not really a VRD. It's a VRD, but we call it a Stance because it's the nerfed one. It's $700 in parts away from being a VRD. So, head-to-head, who do you got? I don't see any reason to go soft on either of these boys. They know what they signed up for. You've got so the, what is it, the VE1, the VM1, the motor and speed control combo that we're working with here are not astounding. It's a Hobby Wing 1060 and the same sealed can 35 turn that has been coming in RTRs since time immemorial. I don't remember what underdrive I'm in. Hold on. Got a little in too far right. Yeah, that's the spot right there. There are, in my experience, in my estimation, the drawbacks of portals, that is generally CG, are more than offset by the advantages of portals. So there are more straight axle rigs in the fleet than there are portals. Okay, that's the spot. I mean, we got to run it more than once, otherwise we don't like what are we doing? We don't know if we're doing it till we're doing it. Okay, so that was a little wider left. Right about that. Right about there. Okay, right there. Okay. Okay, that was on the 40. Try it on the 0. Just so much better. So much better. So, there is something to be said. People have said, oh, you be thankful that you can change the underdrive percentage on the fly from the 0 to the 40 because it's so much better at this in the 0. And I mean, I guess that kind of makes sense. The VRD was much better at it and at 6.5. Let me get one more. Let me get one more of these right here. Right here. Oh yeah. Yeah. Absolutely flailing at 40. On 0, that was reasonably carefree. Now I want to get one more of these to refresh. If it's a turning circle battle, it's not even close. It's not even close. The F10, it must just have more steering angle. Because we're talking a rebadged whatever. I doubt that that's even a 25 kg servo on the Axial that stands up against a $100 NSDRC. Yeah. There is that stability feel though. We on some level we have to. Let me see if I want a sunny spot too. I want a sunny spot. We have to ignore those CG numbers a little bit because in terms of who felt more stable, the 10 Pro. It's lighter and it has a higher CG, but the feeling on the ground is just more planted overall. Okay, we'll go what I regard as the more difficult center cut up here. This is still 0. We're still 0% here. Right across here. Got some hop. If we can try to hook a tire over. Let's see, we get that. See that? See the push? Where it's walking back? All right. Maybe that's a 40 spot. Definitely pulls that front end down. And we get a better positionability in the front end, but it's so light in the front. That weight transfer at this angle, so we're not pulling enough steer angle for me to, what I need to do is cut back this way. Now I'm trying what I would call the bypass. He can't get up over right here. Rear end gets kind of notched in and just won't maneuver around. So I think, yeah, we dropped it back far enough there. So we're gonna try to get over the bypass. And it just put us right back in. All right, we're not getting up there. So we'll go bypass side. And hopefully we don't get funneled. This is still 40. Straight axle stuff right here. There's that little ledge. Little ledge is designed to bring you problems. There we go. There we go. Pull up and around. It's meant to make you regret your life decisions. Stance in. Could botch the entry. Yeah, so quick to throw the nose right there. Yeah, so you can just listen to the but. Ooh, that's a, look at the drag brake on that. That's a gut punch to the 10 Pro right there. I mean, mauled that cut right there. Look at that catch. Okay, now we're going to the bypass. 10 Pro got hung up. See, this is where portals are your friends. Yeah, I mean, I said that I don't want to just outright declare a victor, and this is inferior electronics in the stance, inarguably. Okay, we're gonna come down. We'll come down the little left-hander here. This will give us a look at descending. Yeah, I have to be on power the whole time. Just maintaining a nice even forward motion. Gets that rear tire light and nothing happens. Real slick through there. That was effortless stuff. You know what? His body now out here in the light, I kind of like it. He's got a real fence lizard look to him. Okay. Coming around. There's so much more steer angle. Like you can feel it. Now here, I don't have to use nearly as much throttle because the drag brake is just not the same. There it is right there. There it is. there is that differential in stability, because while the resting CG is lower overall and its descending CG is worse, rear axle raised, the 10 Pro is a good bit better. And I think it showed right there. He wants to be in the shot here. There we go. We'll go right there. So now we do the opposite. We do fence line cut. Right up here. This is just driving. It's just absolute drive. There's no chop here. There's nothing to get his axles or his belly stuck on. So this is, we still in 40? We're still in 40. 40 up that line like it was nothing. The big 40 is also going to help the descent because it's 4/10 dig. So it's going to help us all the way there. Stance in, low speed control is not there. It's like fits and starts all the way up. There's more drive. There's more drive. We're going to lift that tire, get it light. It drives much lighter. The 10 Pro feels like hyper stable. Can I get out of that? I got myself into it. I mentioned previously that the 10 Pro feels so planted that it almost feels too well planted. Like I would like to give some of that back. This guy always has, especially on these electronics, this guy has got a real squirtiness to him. Like he's getting, you better watch out, he's on the loose. But in terms of the maneuverability, it's just more maneuverable. It's just more maneuverable. The actions are all quicker. Like it comes at you quicker. The 10 Pro is the only thing I can think to describe it as overstable. We'll go stance first into Daphne's other line. Daphne can murder this part right here. So we use the fence post there as kind of a marker. Where do you have to cut back and forth relative to that fence? And then we get in here and then it's a little notchy. Driver front is cutting in. We want to see, can we, oh, that was too easy. That was too easy. Little bit of slide back there. And the slide backs, when you'll notice we're going to get a lot more slide back out of stance than we are out of 10 Pro. And that is because you have to maintain constant finger pressure. Otherwise, every time you lift finger off throttle, you will start to roll back immediately. Okay, I think we're still big. We're still big. Oh, yeah. Yep. Yep. Okay, the 40 pulling us around. Then we get to right here, and honestly, that's a 0. Get it over around the side. Get it over around the side. There it is. Nope. Got the back shuttle. Okay, out on the fence. The entry was outstanding. It was better than the stance in every aspect, and it got to that midpoint, and I could not, neither on 0 nor 40, get through that transition. All right. This is 0. 0 on entry. Ooh, this is a good hook. Good hook. Oh, yeah, right there. Here's the thing. This is coming back. It's coming back around. This is that hyper stability. And then right here, this is a clearance issue. This is a portal issue. We didn't have a problem pulling the rear axle over right here. I'm trying 40 now. But I don't think that the front is getting enough. We'll try wide over. Okay, got to go a little wider over. All right. It genuinely feels at moments like that, the plantedness, that sure-footedness, it feels like it's holding it's holding it back. Now I question potential future decisions of removing the gearbox, because it does almost feel like it needs 0 and 40, because sometimes the 0 does not work and sometimes the 40 does not work, but it's also not explicitly intuitive in its behavior. Like, you don't see a line. I don't see that center cut approach and think, oh, 0 or oh, 40. The stance just does it. And don't buy a stance. If you only have one takeaway from today's episode, it's don't buy a stance. Build a VRD. All right, this is front 9. We're going to do 2-3. The gate to your right hand of screen is gate 2. The gate to the left hand of screen is gate 3. We generally try for a pretty much a straight shot cut between the two. Coming in down high. There's a real slippery moment right here. You come across 2 river rocks and it will try to just slip you down. So you see we're coming towards the low side marker, but not a problem there. Yeah, that side hill stability is... We're going to go on the straight side hill. I want to see what the transition looks like relative on the 2. But in terms of side hill maneuverability, this is, if not as good as it gets, very nearly. He is so, oh man. The 10 Pro in that situation is so planted. That body looks surprisingly decent outside. I wanted the hard green to soft green fade. Okay, the part that's completely out of frame, the transition, getting up across the rocks right now, it's going to be down to throttle pressure. Yeah, I mean, it's just not as stable. But the amount that it looks higher is mostly a trick of the eye. Like, look at that right there. This is crazy. It can't work, right? It does. Oh, the throttle is... You know, let's be fair. The throttle is not terrible. Oh, we're coming down. Oh, nope, you ain't got it. You ain't got it. Side hill is where the 10 Pro lives. If your regular stomping grounds are not full of chop, the 10 Pro, that stability is going to keep you super planted. Like right here, 10 Pro did not slide its rear end at all. And look at that rear end just slide away. Can definitely make it. It just, oh, well. Our CG might have moved a little because I had griped about the sliders in the 10 Pro, how they have a step in them. Well, the Stance's battery is now sitting on top of his front axle because it slid out, and I pulled that strap down as tight as I could pull it. I'm gonna have to route it so that the battery wire is through the strap. The 2-3 combo, that's 10 Pro by a lot, like way out in front. I think gate 5 will be a real tiebreaker. So gate 5 needs some proper positioning. You got to get wide, you got to hook that tire right there, and then the tire's got to be able to pull you over like that to keep you up high towards white side. That's a portal brake right there. And that's what happens when you've got the VE1 and VM1 and the slightest application of throttle rockets you sideways. So 10 Pro on 0. Try 0 first. Hook it, pull it, real good. Whip. If they didn't fall in the exact same spot, they might as well have, Okay, stance was brought down not by geometry, but rather by an inability to apply really delicate throttle. I'm just gonna try not to let off. There it is. Okay. It was a teeth clencher all the way though. Like that speed control and motor are like clearly. I think we've been out here long enough to establish that they do the thing. But then, oh, he's getting bold down there. They don't feel good. They do not feel good. This feels a lot better. And is it the cheapest brushless option you can get? If it's not, it's very close. Fusion SE 1200 at $69.99. Sometimes on AliExpress for under 50 bucks. I thought I had the line just about right, and a fly flew right in my left ear. Stay, 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 stay. Get the touch, get the touch. Yeah, yeah. That right there, honestly, I thought it was going to be like, the grand decider. No, it was pretty much the same in terms of like how loose did it get. Every fight that I had in that was on the Vanquish side because I was fighting the VE1 and the VM1. Radio's fine. Servo is doing fine. I don't notice the servo or the radio at all. I notice the speed control and the motor like all the time. That's a $70 fix though, right? Know what I'm saying? But then already now you're so picture below you right there your stance, which do not buy the stance. Your stance is 500 bucks. You call it about $80 for the wheel tire insert combo, and another, I'd put an 1800 in it probably. So call it another 80. So you're already at 660 for that. And at that point, you're pretty close to the 10 Pro as configured. But the 10 Pro's got nicer stuff. Like in terms of the shocks. Not the axles. It's tough, man. These are improperly close. Might as well get the one that we know, and by know I mean assume is going to be less good out of the way first here. Ugh. It's the fine control, you know. That quarter band and up, it's fine. But we spend a lot of time down here. Just geo straight over. Just geo straight over. That sprightliness, that lightness, it's like a race car feel. Like it feels more active. Yeah, this is just casual. And, you know, far closer than, you know, any effort made not to preconceive a notion. It's already there. It's already there. So close. So close. This is another one of those. I mean, if I was drawing a conclusion, should have seen that roll. That rolled far. They're different. I mean, they really are. They are similar because they are priced about the same. In terms of where do I see more value? I see more value not there, not that. Don't buy a stance. Imagine with me, if you will. So, beneath that stance body is not, I guess, what we would have to call the VRD RTR, because I just keep calling it a stance, even though stance is the body, and that's a VRD, and the thing that you get in the kit is the VRD Carbon. But we're going to call this one a stance. If that was a VRD Carbon underneath that body and not the VRD, the stance, there's more value, just a lot more value. Better links, better gears throughout, 38% underdrive rather than 6.5. Nicer shocks, motor plate, metal standoffs. There's just a lot of stuff on there, and we're going to see it. We're going to see it hopefully sooner rather than later. We're going to see an instance of this gentleman on your right versus, in place of the gentleman on the left, a VRD Carbon rather than a stance. And honestly, that's the thing for me. That's I want to see stance versus VRD Carbon. I want to see a lot of things, and the Canyon has brought us the ability to see these things, to see many of these things. I would not declare. I can't say. There's no way the thumbnail is plastered with, oh, Battle of the Titans, best RTR ever versus the super best thing of this that's also awesome. No, they're both good. They're quite good. In terms of the stance as an RTR, an argument people like to make is, oh, it's the most capable RTR out there. It doesn't matter, because the VRD Carbon can be outfitted for not that much more money. The tires and electronics that come with a stance have to be discarded. The 10 Pro takes an advantage there because it doesn't come with stuff that needs to be discarded. It has a body that is not overwhelmingly expensive, despite the fact that it looks like a hot dog bun. It's kind of growing on me now in its lizard paint job, looking a little bit like a fence lizard. I like it. Do I like it more than the stance? I don't like either of them. I don't like either of them. I don't have to like everything, and you can't make me. So, I think if it's between a VRD Carbon and a 10 Pro, and this is pretty early on, we've got a couple more of these to go through, but sitting here on the bucket chair in this moment, I don't think there's a loser between the two. I think they have a different capability set, and depending on where you are and where you're running, the margin is going to get pushed one way or the other. We saw over there, gates 2 and 3, front 9, 10 Pro threw it like walking in the park. Not only did the stance take 2 shots at it, but I can't translate the feel. I can't tell you what my thumb and my index fingers are feeling in the moment, but the stance is twitchy. But in a lot of other situations, that twitchiness translates through. That's just maneuverability. It has more turn angle. It wants to turn more quickly. It wants to be more aggressive in all of its movements. The 10 Pro, as outfitted, feels stable to the point of overstability, if that's a thing. I feel like, honestly, start throwing your hard-earned money at them, and you could probably achieve some level of parity. Where the horsepower and torque curves will intersect, and in this, what we will call the stance horsepower and the 10 Pro torque, where they're going to intersect and become essentially equals, I don't know. I know it's overall it's cheaper to throw parts at a 10 Pro, so advantage there. They don't sell it as an RTR, double advantage there. Axial, please do not make a 10 Pro RTR. Just don't. This is fine. Do I see points of improvement for both? Absolutely 100%. They are not the absolute dominators. They're not the dominators. Toothless, who exists here, a rig built largely out of Amazon 10 Pro parts with some Diamond Pro axles under him, would punch both of these guys in the face at virtually everything that we did today and cost less than both. This isn't a gun. Building crawlers is not going to the gun shop. You can't buy a weapon. You have to build a weapon. You have to assemble it. Is the stance the most capable RTR? It doesn't matter. Is the Stance better than the 10 Pro? No, don't buy a Stance. Never, ever, ever buy a Stance. Is the 10 Pro good? Yeah. Room for improvement? Yeah. Is the VRD Carbon good? Yeah. Is there room for improvement? Yeah. I still contend that the VRD Carbon kit is the best RTR money can buy, because you build the kit exactly as instructed in the book. Put a body, wheels, tires, electronics on it, and you are done. In my mind, it beats the 10 Pro for that, because I can see things on the 10 Pro that I want to change. You can drive a VRD Carbon just as is. Just as is. It is just that much better than the Stance. It is just that much better than the VRD, than the 10 Pro. But that's extrapolation. That's interpolation. I don't know yet. I haven't seen them side by side, but we will, or I hope that you will. And this went on maybe not even as long as it needed to. Everything will sort itself out in its own due time. And we'll see more of both of these guys, and we will see more VRD inclusion. We will our buddy the mullet will be out here to see is he the best of both worlds. After the VRD is part of the fleet, and we have a VRD and a 10 Pro and a homebrewed mullet that is all Vanquish. So it is a Vanquish straight in the front and a Vanquish portal in the rear. Will he be in between? Will he be better than both? Don't know. I don't know. Hopefully, we will all find out together as a collective. I thank you so much for joining us here for this one today. I invite you to please do comment below. I look forward to seeing you in the next one, and in between now and then, I please recommend that you one and all do your very best. Have a good one, everybody. We'll see you next time here from the canyon. Close. Very, very close. And you know what? As far as I'm concerned, that is a best case scenario.